Guys, welcome to the I Love CVille Show. It's Jerry Miller. Thank you kindly for joining us. It is a glorious day to be alive here in Charlottesville in Central Virginia. When you love life, it can't help but love you back. Thank you kindly for tuning in. Yolunda Harrell is our guest. She is the Chief Executive Officer of New Hill Development Corporation. I am so excited to have her on the show in our I Love CVille studios. She walked in and immediately had a presence and energy about her that captivated our audience, or captivated our team, and I'm excited for you to see that firsthand. We will welcome Yolunda to the show in a matter of 30 seconds or so. Before we do, I'd like to thank some of the fine folks that make the program possible. Guys, VMV Brands and I Love CVille are an advertising agency, and two of our favorite clients are Intrastate Pest and Service Companies and Scott Wagner Chiropractic and Sports Medicine. First, we will start with Intrastate. This business started in 1969 with the first generation, Mr. Wells. He had one truck, sweat equity, and a dream. This gentleman would go to his first home, he would service his client successfully, find the closest payphone in 1969, and call his second customer and say, "May I come see you now?" Today, this business, 4 generations of family strong, almost 100 employees, and a Commonwealth-wide footprint, making our community a better place for everybody. We also salute the good doctor, Scott Wagner of Scott Wagner Chiropractic and Sports Medicine. Whether it's physical therapy, chiropractic care, or sports medicine, Dr. Wagner and his team have your back. Their tagline, "Who's got your back?" embodies what they stand for. Harris Tolber is the astronaut of the spaceship. I am along for the ride. Judah Wickhauer, the producer. Lauren Linsky, a producer as well. Harris, my friend, if you could go to the studio cam, and if you could welcome Yolunda to the show. First, we will start by saying good afternoon, Yolunda. How are you?
Good afternoon. I am wonderful.
Thank you very much for coming on the show. We will cut what we call sizzle reels, which are highlight clips from the program.
Okay.
The first sizzle reel, Harris Tolber, is this one here. Yolunda Harrell, introduce us to your origin or your birth story. Who you are, passions, hobbies, and interests. Why don't we start with childhood?
Well, thank you. So I was born in a very small town in Ashland, Alabama. My husband loves to joke about it because it has a one-level, one-story hospital, so it's very small. and so that's where the majority of our family lives. So we lived there. My mother and my biological father separated before I was born, and so that's where my mom and my sister and I went back to live after they had moved back from Japan. And so I was born there, and then we lived in public housing. We lived in Ashland, and then we moved to Talladega. And then shortly, probably when I was in second, third grade, my mom ended up losing her job. She worked for a factory. And so my sister and I had to go and live with our godparents in Oakland, California. So that was a huge culture shock, going from this little town and going to this major metropolitan area that was quite different from where we were accustomed to living. So we lived there, and people often ask, well, you don't really have a Alabama accent. I said, well, I lost it when I moved to Oakland, California, because I was teased so much for the really, really strong Southern accent. And then we moved from there to Columbia, South Carolina. My mother met my dad, and so they got married. My dad worked for the Department of Defense, and he was stationed in Fort Jackson, and so that's where I grew up, in Columbia, South Carolina. And since then, I've lived predominantly in the South. My career has allowed me to move around in most of the southern states, and I went from Columbia to Charlotte to Concord, North Carolina to Savannah, Georgia, to Hilton Head Island, to Atlanta, back to Columbia, and then to here. So I've enjoyed living in the southern region of the United States.
How has the traveling from city to city, how has that shaped a lot of your personal identity? I would think when you, especially as a child and in your adolescence and your teenage years, when you're going from city to city and meeting new people, it really creates kind of a survival mentality.
It really does. And it allows you to be very flexible and independent because, you get used to going to places where you don't know anyone. And so you have to find a way to make new friends and create new social circles to really kind of, find your place in that new environment. And so, I feel like that has allowed me to be very resilient in my life because I've had to be just in order to, adjust to the new place that I was living.
Talk to us about the trials and tribulations of childhood. You mentioned your mom lost her job. You've touched on hopping around from city to city. Throw that question to you.
Yes, certainly. So my mother worked for a sewing factory. Okay. There's a lot of factories in Alabama, and so a lot of people work in different types of manufacturing of some sort. It's either in chicken or it's tires or it's something along that line. And so they went through a layoff. And so in order for her to be able to work as much as she needed to be able to work whatever shifts she could work. And so that wasn't going to work out very well for her with 2 small children at home. Even though my aunt lived with us, she still wanted to be able to be as flexible as she possibly could. And so my godparents drove across the United States, came pick me up first, and then my sister flew out later. And we moved back and we lived there. And so that was a huge adjustment because as a child, your world is like what you've been exposed to. So I grew up in a world where I was one of 2 maybe African-American children in a classroom in a very, very segregated area to going to a school where there was maybe 1 or 2 white kids in a class, and there was Asian and Hispanic, and I had never been exposed to all those other races before. And so it was really interesting. And so that was, for me, this just an eye-opening experience that the world can be extremely different, but I was only used to what I had been exposed to. And so, of course, then moving to Columbia, South Carolina, it's a military town, but it's a university town. It's got so many things that goes into making it into a wonderful city to live. And so you really get a chance to get exposed to a number of different narratives there. And so it allows you to really gain a lot of understanding. My mother was always big into volunteerism. So even when we lived in the projects in Alabama, we had to do volunteer work. Her thing was that we always needed to be giving to others. And so we always did that. And so when I lived in Columbia, one of the things that really blessed me as a person was my mother and I volunteered for home health services. And what we would do is we'd go in and we would just do simple tasks or just spend time with people who were housebound. And so she had her patients, I had my patients that we would work with, but we would really come across some really sad situations, but also come across some really unique people that would just really bless you, especially sometimes sitting with elderly people because you get so much history and you get their wisdom and they're just anxious to pass it along to someone. And so that was something that I really enjoyed. And my mother always instilled that, you always should be giving. You should always be finding a way to contribute positively to your community, no matter where you live. Don't make it an excuse that you're busy and you're working, because everybody's got those things, but you should still make time to give to others. And so that was one of the things that I learned, and we always did that growing up. And so as I started to move around with my career, I started going to University of South Carolina, and I thought I wanted to be a psychologist, and then I thought I wanted to be a nurse, and then I decided I don't know what I want to be, but I do know that one day I want to own my own business. And I said, so I'm just going to take a break from school for a little while. So I did that. And I was working. I had started working for Blue Cross Blue Shield when I was 16. And so I worked all through high school and into college for them. And then I got an opportunity to go and work for Xerox Corporation. And so I worked for Xerox Corporation. That's how I ended up moving to Charlotte. I didn't move right away. I commuted every day. So it was about an hour-and-a-half commute one way each day, going to Charlotte and coming home. So all I really did at that point was sleep and work because that's all I could do. But I enjoyed the experience. And then I got a chance to go and work for a company that was really about systems and quality and teamwork and collaboration. And I really felt like I learned an immense amount of things about business and about how to build a team and how to lead. And so I got my first managerial experience working for them.
Nice.
And I was very young, and so made a lot of mistakes. And but it was exciting. It was fun, and I covered I worked for one of their vertical markets before I left there. So I had like 80 stores that I supported, Office Max, Office Depot, and Staples stores all across North Carolina and part of South Carolina. So I lived in my car, constantly going to those places. And my job was to resolve any type of issues that their copy centers may have with the corporation, or to do training, or to just, be a goodwill ambassador for Xerox. And so that was very interesting. Riding around there. And so what I decided, what really started me to moving around was I really got back to this idea of I wanted to have my own business someday. And I said, well, I looked into going back to school, but I was considered as an out-of-state student. If I went back in North Carolina, it was going to be way too expensive. And I said, well, I can still get an education. I can just do it through my career. So I decided that I would break up all the pieces that I felt like I needed to learn about owning and running my own business, and would get a job in that particular field so that I could then get that experience. And so that's what led me to moving around. So when I worked for Xerox, I was a manager, and I really learned a lot about systems and about building teams. But what I felt like I didn't get was that experience of what if I didn't manage very well in terms of a financial impact. And so I decided I would go work for Kinko's. And so I moved to Savannah, Georgia, because at Kinko's, part of your pay came from your ability to be able to manage your store profitably. And so the more profitable your store was, then the more money you would make. And so I said,
It's a good incentive.
Yeah, absolutely, right? And so my thought was I would do that, and then that way I could feel like the emotional and the financial effects of doing a good job.
Love it.
And so I went there. The store I was able to manage, it was not in the black. It was running in the red, and had been running in red for quite some years. And so I had 6 months to turn it around. 6 months.
Wow, no pressure.
Yeah, none whatsoever. So, they were like, we'll give you guarantee your salary for 100% for 6 months, and then
it's a draw.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then you only get, I think at that time, you only got 60%.
Get out.
Yes, and so you would lose 40%. But you had the possibility
to make more
sure, if you did a good job.
Sure.
So I remember the first month that I did not get my full pay, and that did not feel good. And I thought, I do not want to feel this way again. So it took a couple of months, but then I finally, beyond the 6-month period, and I finally figured it all out. I finally, pull the right levers and get everything working the way it needed to, so we could run in the black, and that was rewarding. And so, but unfortunately, I didn't really enjoy the environment that I was working in, and my manager at the time, our district manager, he took the entire team to this Tony Robbins event, and I remember at the event, Tony asked everyone to take out a piece of paper and to write down, on one side, to write down a list of all of the positive emotions that you had felt that week. If this was, and so you wrote them down, and then he said, okay, now I want you to write down all the negative emotions that you felt that week. And so you wrote that down, and he said, now, if this was the last week of your life, did you spend your last week of your life feeling the way you wanted to feel? And so when you looked at that, it was like, wow, it was a very telling story, because I didn't feel that way. And I said, I had a ton of negative emotions, and said, okay, you know what? I had a goal for myself. I wanted to come here. I wanted to learn how to manage a business profitably. I wanted to know what that felt like. I've reached that goal. So on my 1-year anniversary, I decided I'd put in my notice. And that was the shortest stint that I had ever had for a company, working for a company at that point. And I felt like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. And so then I went from there, and I said, well, I need to learn about sales. Got to learn how to sell. I'm going to sell a service, I'm going to sell a product. So I went to work doing, before I did that, I transitioned and I started working for AirTran Airways. So I was working for AirTran, and I was working for a lawyer, and then unfortunately 9/11 happened. And so I ended up losing my job. Everybody lost their job that was working in that particular reservation center. We all lost our jobs. And so then I was like, okay, well, this is the first time in my life that I've been without a job. Never had that experience before. And so I decided that I would do some sales work, and I started working for this door-to-door sales, selling water treatment equipment, and
That's
it was
hard.
Yes, and
Yeah.
it was commission only. So
Get
you don't
out.
sell, you don't. I totally put myself in really bad situations, but it was good because I really wanted to understand how to feel, to what it felt like. And so one of the great things that I felt like I got from that was this book that our sales manager had us to read, and it was called The Greatest Salesman in the World by Og Mandino. And I thought that was the absolute best book, and I recommend it highly to people all the time. Like, you should read this book because it really gets into like the emotional state and learning how to deal with the word no.
Sure.
You know, and understanding that people are not saying no to you, they're
Right.
just saying no to your
The
product.
opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. And so then and what I also learned about that experience was the fact that, you know, oftentimes when people say no, it's because you haven't given them enough information to say yes. And, you know, so you learned a lot of different sales techniques, but really it was more about understanding people, like understanding like what motivates people to be able to buy into your brand or your service or your product. And one of the things that they taught us was, you know, you need to make friends. You need to, you know,
network.
Yeah, absolutely. In order for people to trust you, you know, you're not going to make a sale to someone unless they trust you. And that really, at that point, it becomes not about making a sale, but it really is about them buying.
I love it. I love it. That right there is the first sizzle reel, start to finish. That's inspiring. In fact, you know how I know it's inspiring is because of the feedback on the chat and because what I'm feeling on set right now. We have reporters from both TV stations and the newspaper watching right now. Richard Allen Fox. He's of Roslyn Farm. He says, Yolunda, what an incredible journey. I love the hands-on education mentality that you're pursued. You have someone in South Carolina by the name of Randy Davis. Your mom is an absolute saint, and you're carrying on her love and compassion. Kanata Simmons, help me with that first name.
Kanata, that's my
Kanata
cousin.
Simmons. She says, cousin, this is a feel-good moment for me right now. I am cheesing over here. This is made-for-TV radio stuff. I am so proud of you. And then she has since tagged, is it Valentina Simmons and Daniel Simmons? Mm-hmm. Yeah, they are now tagged on the stream. If you want to relay some questions or some positivity to Yolunda, put it in the chat box on any of the 7 Facebook pages you're watching this show on, and I'm happy to relay it to our featured guests. I want to throw something to you here. I also always knew that I was going to be an entrepreneur and a business owner. When I was 12 years old in my neighborhood, I was the guy that not only was cutting the neighbor's grass or like shoveling the driveway for snow, but I had a team of 5 of my friends that were kind of under me, where I would go door to door and I would secure the deal with the neighbor to cut his grass for, say, like $25 a yard, or to shovel his driveway for, say, $30 a driveway. And then I would get one of my friends, and they would cut the grass. They would keep half the money. I would keep half the money, because I knew right away when I was 12 that if I had 5 friends cutting 5 yards on a Saturday, that I could make more money in totality than if I was just cutting 1 yard myself.
Absolutely.
Then that kind of mindset kind of followed me into college at UVA. This business we launched 11 years ago in a recession in 2008 out of our condo that is now a rental property. Where I'm going with this is always knew that I wanted to be a number one and take the risk. I was okay with risk because I knew the upside followed the risk if I executed correctly. I want to throw this to you. The start of the second sizzle reel is this commentary. When did you realize, A, that you were an entrepreneur waiting to happen? B, how do you manage the vulnerability of risk and fear? And C, what is your favorite aspect of being an entrepreneur?
So I think when I was a child, too, I realized that I wanted to, I did not like having to answer all the questions my parents had when I wanted money. So,
Same.
you know,
Same.
and they're like, you know, they gave us an allowance, and my dad wanted me to, you know, understand how to budget that allowance. And then if I ran out of money and I wanted to go back to them for something, I just didn't like all the questions. And so I said, you know what, I got to figure out a way to make money so that I don't have to ask them for it and I can have my own money. And so I started trying to think of ways that I could make money in order to do that. I was not into babysitting, so didn't want to do that. So I think I made little candies and little little ice pops. You know how you had you may be a little too young for this, but when I was a kid, you had those little plastic ice trays, and you could
Sure.
put things in them, and then you put little toothpicks in them, and then you could sell them. So I'd sell them to my friends, and so just doing little things like that. But it was really about independence. I wanted to be independent, and I didn't like having to answer for everything every time I wanted to go somewhere. All the litany of questions that would come my way from my parents. I wanted more independence, and so that was one of what inspired me. But I would say what has sustained me is my faith. I am a Christian, and I really pray, and I really spend time in prayer, and really just every morning that I get up, I listen to Dr. Tony Evans, who's a pastor out of Texas, and I listen to a sermon every day as I'm getting ready to get my mind right, to get my heart right, so that I can focus for the day. And that is what allows me to be able to deal with the ups and downs and the ebbs and flows. Because when you do commission-only sales...
Oh, my gosh. I did that. I did radio.
Tough.
So first job at a UVA was, and that's the second sizzle reel to there. First job at a UVA was as a newspaper writer for the Daily Progress. Eventually parlayed that into a newspaper, a daily newspaper column with the Daily Progress, a syndicated radio show with ESPN Radio, and 2 TV shows with NBC 29. Part of the job was selling the ad inventory within the shows, and that ad inventory was commission only. Commission only sales is freaking tough.
Yes, it is.
I mean, that will light a fire under your tail to make some money, because you get no foundation or reliable money coming out unless you're grinding.
Absolutely.
Throw that to you. I mean, that's got to be how did that shape you as and we're going to get to New Hill here, but how did that shape you and your evolution coming into being a chief executive officer?
I would say that it really allowed me to get to know myself better and understand what was holding me back, what were my fears. So not only did I do it door to door, then I went to work for Marriott Vacation Club selling timeshare, and that was also commission only. And so then it was in a different environment, and now you're trying to get people to spend $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 right in one
on the
pot.
spot.
On the spot.
Right.
Absolutely.
On vacation.
Right.
Probably, right?
Yes,
yeah.
absolutely.
And when they're probably there to get a free pass to something.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes, absolutely. So obviously you've been.
I have. I know firsthand what you're talking about.
But it was an awesome experience, right? Because when you were doing great, you could see the benefits of, this is what, once you really figure it out. But what I felt like I really got out of it more than anything, not just money, but really what I learned about me and how to get over being afraid of no, and how to get over being afraid of, the folks in different income scales. Because, you have people that are sitting in front of you that can, they're multi-millionaires, to individuals that, were not
Credit card
that.
extended.
Exactly,
Yeah.
Absolutely. So it was a really interesting experience, and learning how to navigate dealing with those different personalities. And so it was really enjoyable. And I felt like that with that, it allowed me to learn how to focus. But it also allowed me to learn how to build rapport and establish relationships with individuals more comfortably, so that I didn't care about what their financial status was, or I didn't care what race they were, or I didn't care what their background was. It was all about understanding that everyone brings value to the table,
Love that.
And so it's always, to me, I found, that humans are some of the best, resources that are around you. And so, but if you don't have good relationships with those individuals, then you're not going to be able to tap into the value that they bring to this world, to be able to either inspire you or inspire them, or to be able to work collaboratively with them to be able to get something accomplished.
I love it. And the sizzle reel there, the second one. Harris, that's the ending point there, please. You have a lot of feedback on the chain. First, let's go to my page here. Kyle Irvin, who's the marketing director of Transit, of CAT.
Okay.
He says, timeshare sales are one of the hardest, most cutthroat sales jobs. I used to work at Massanutten Resort. It really does mold you and help shape your outlook when interacting with others, but it chips away at your moral compass over time. Ray Cadell, who's in real estate, and he's also a musician that manages a bunch of musicians. He says, everybody should spend part of their life working on commission at some point in their life. I totally agree with that, Ray. I totally think everyone should work in food service or hospitality at some time as well, because you don't know how difficult a business is until someone is hangry. And then it's really, really hard. Annette says, hold on one second, I'm scrolling up. She says, please tell her that her auntie is watching, Deborah.
Aww.
She's watching right now, and she's loving what's happening. Randy Davis says, you rock as always. Your outgoing nature and loving heart will take you wherever you desire. Keep loving God and others and be the best you. Thank you for your profession of faith. I had no doubt that you would let everyone know your love of God on this show. Neil Williamson from the Free Enterprise Forum is watching. We now have folks at the CVille Weekly on the stream. John Kluge, welcome to the broadcast as well. All right, let's start the third sizzle reel here, and we're going to go to New Hill Development, Harris Tolber. Yolunda Armstrong Harrell,
Yes.
you are the CEO of New Hill Development. Introduce us to the business in totality, and then I will go in with some specifics.
Absolutely. So, New Hill Development Corporation, we are a young organization. We actually incorporated April of 2018, but we really came together as a group to think about what we could possibly be and do for our community back in 2017, probably around the April-May timeframe. It just started out with a group of entrepreneurs and business leaders kind of meeting. And this group was put together by Wes Bellamy and Kathy Galvin to just think about, like, what would it be like if we could potentially have like a Black business district. And so that was where we started. But then as we started meeting and talking about growing wealth and growing the African American community, and and looking at what are some of our challenges, or what are some of the opportunities that may exist, we started to expand our thinking about what we needed to do, that it wasn't just one simple thing. And so we needed to look a little bit more broader. And so we started reaching out to other organizations. My sister happens to work for a Community Development Corporation in Columbia, South Carolina. And so I over the years, we would always talk about what they were doing. And so we reached out to her boss, who happened to be coming to UVA for an executive training over at the Darden School.
Nice.
And so she was going to be in town, and so we sat down with her and talked. We also reached out to other organizations. We reached out to folks in Louisiana and different places around the country to talk about what they had been doing. I think it was Propeller down in Louisiana. And so we just went on this research mode to like really kind of gather what was some of the things that people were doing to make impact and to create more opportunity. And so once we realized, that the best way to approach this was to establish a community development corporation, then that's the direction that we started to take. And then we thought about, well, who can be our partners in this? And so during that time, Christine Mahoney, who is over the Social Entrepreneurship Center at UVA, married to John, sure. She had been an initial participant in those first conversations, and so offered research fellows to help us with digging up things that we needed to find out and offering their resources. So they became an ongoing partner for us. But then we started to look at nationally who could also be partners. And so Maurice Jones, who is on the BOV at UVA, is the CEO of List Corporation, which is headquartered out of New York, where Maurice used to be the Secretary of Commerce for the state of Virginia, right. And also a UVA grad. And so LIST stands for Local Initiative Support Corporation, and they're about helping communities transform in the way that they want to transform, and being, and helping organizations be able to finance that. So we partnered with them, and then we also started looking at the piece that we felt most strong about was, how do we help increase our knowledge and awareness of money, and the understanding of money and the resource.
You're talking education?
Absolutely.
Okay.
How do we help not only, because we looked at it just personally saying, hey, there's a lot of us, sitting around this table that still struggle with money and understanding how to best leverage it or utilize it, how to grow it, how to hang on to it, those sorts of things. And so we said, let's talk to others and see, hey, would this be something that individuals would be interested in? And so we looked at different programs, but the one that really struck us, John actually introduced us to John Hope Bryant in his organization down in Atlanta, which is called Operation Hope. And what we loved about that organization was, one, it had a person behind it that was focused and wanting to make sure that individuals had access and opportunity and were empowered to be able to take control of their financial future, but giving help from others to be able to understand how to do that.
Love that.
And so we decided we would partner with them because we thought this is what we want to do. We want to make sure
and he had
that
the proof of concept.
Absolutely. They've been around for over 20 years. They're a national brand. It works. We got a chance to go to the Hope Global Forum down in Atlanta.
Nice.
It was an amazing event. You got a chance to hear from so many folks in the financial world, but talking on a very personal level. And they did things like, the way they had it set up was very much like how you have this set up, where it's just a one-to-one conversation and folks have the opportunity to listen in.
So it's super approachable.
Very approachable.
Okay.
Very approachable. And so you got a chance to really understand like where they were trying to go with what they were trying to do, but they were really wanting to make sure that, hey, we need the people that are helping shape these rules at the table so that we can make sure that the game plan that we're coming up with makes sense and that it's actually going to play out very well in this game, this capitalistic society that we have, that we need to understand the rules to it, so that we can be able to play well within it. So we partnered with them, and so we now have that as part of who we are as an organization. So once we established those kinds of connections, we decided the three things we wanted to focus on. We wanted to focus on financial inclusion, education, empowerment. We wanted to help people to increase their credit scores because what we learned through this process.
Critical.
Absolutely, is that a large part of how we get left out is because of the way the system is established. And it's a large part of it is built on credit. So if your credit isn't to a certain point, then it closes you off to a lot of opportunity that you may desire for yourself. And so we wanted to make sure that we were giving individuals an opportunity to be able to understand that and to utilize that and to be able to capitalize on that. And then the second part is once you understand your finances and you really have a good sense of where you want to go with your financial future, what's the next step? Do you want to have a better job or do you want to own your own business? And so our thought was, how do we create more opportunity? Now, we most of us know the story of what happened during urban renewal here in Charlottesville. And so for a lot of our African American community members, those opportunities were stunted and cut off because of raising of Vinegar Hill and raising of of different neighborhoods like Gospel Hill. And what would be a financial wealth building tool like home ownership or business ownership was taken away. And so how do we get back to a place? Charlottesville right now is very expensive, as we know.
So expensive.
So how do we create more opportunity within this environment so that more people are able to take advantage of the existing opportunity that's here, but then opportunity that could potentially be here? And so so the second thing that we focus on is economic development. It's either helping individuals to gain access to a better career opportunity or to be able to stand up that business that they've always dreamed about, or to be able to expand the one that they already have and be able to reach more folks. And then the last portion of it that we focus on is affordable housing, but for us, it's more about affordable home ownership. We wanted folks to be able to get back to a place where, as they're looking to take those steps in life, that there's home ownership opportunity at every phase of that. And so no matter where you are, there should be ownership should be attainable. It shouldn't be so far out of reach that you just kind of give up on the idea of being able to achieve that. And
because
so,
hope is motivating factor.
Absolutely, very much so. And so our goal, our vision statement is building avenues of upward mobility. We want to build those pathways. How do we make sure that there are steps along the way so that individuals can feel confident that they can take the next step without falling off a cliff?
Love this.
And so that's who we're about, and that's what we're looking to do. And so when we reached out to the city to look at how we could partner with them to create something. Obviously, City Yard is right here, and that's been something that has been talked about over the years as an opportunity. But we wanted to look at that area because it also was...
This is the Star Hill neighborhood.
Exactly.
Yeah, and City Yard, to offer perspective, and this is the layman's perspective. You're the
Yes.
expert here. And that right there is a sizzle reel, the third sizzle reel. City Yard is where, and correct me if I'm wrong, where the city is storing a lot of its vehicles and equipment.
Well, but it also houses a number of people there as well. So they do have
So it's a big neighborhood?
Well, the City Yard itself is on about 10 acres, and so it has a lot of different departments that are out there. But then you also have other underutilized spaces that exist within the Star Hill. But then you also have the beautiful neighborhood of Star Hill itself that a lot of development is happening around.
Yeah.
And so what we wanted to look at was the fact that you've got Jefferson School there, you got the part of the old footprint of Vinegar Hill there.
Right.
And so that would be a great
It's a
place
heart
to
in the
start.
city.
It's in the heart of the city. Great place to start.
Yeah.
To take a look at some of the opportunities that could come from that particular area. And so what we decided to do, the city had not done a small area plan for that area. That's that was one of the areas that were named or designated to receive a small area plan. So we partnered with them, and they were gracious enough to give us a donation to allow us to be able to start to focus on creating a small area plan.
And that was the $500,000?
Yes.
Okay,
absolutely.
fantastic. So that's essentially seed money,
Right.
right? To jumpstart the business.
Well, that jumpstart the business, but a large portion of that goes to the small area plan. So about $350,000 of it goes to the small area plan.
I love your vision. I love how it's like it epitomizes what we try to do, being a social entrepreneur, where you're focused on leaving the footprint of the community in a better place than when you first arrived. I love that you're focusing on the Star Hill neighborhood because of the history behind it, and it's got some bad history behind it with what city has done with Vinegar Hill and that neighborhood. And I also love it because Star Hill neighborhood, in a lot of ways, is in peril because there's so much development happening around it that it's in this like crossroads of, is this going to like maintain its like community identity and its integrity and its character, or will it be swallowed by these developers who are building these towers that are towering over it? Throw that to you.
Absolutely. So not only Star Hill, but then you also have 10th and Page, and you have West Haven that's also affected by that, right? And so our goal was to understand how can we help preserve the neighborhood that the community there would like to see preserved, and if there's anything that they would like to see added or changed about their community, that we could include that in the small area plan, because ultimately our goal is to be able to protect and preserve, but also create opportunity where opportunity exists. And so we've been engaging with the community there as well as the broader community because of the three things that we're focused on. So we're in the middle of this small area plan process right now. You mentioned earlier about our online platform. It's called Panika. And what that is, and that's actually underway right now. We started it on July the 9th. Forgot what month we're in. July the 9th. And essentially what we're doing is an online engagement platform to allow folks to be able to sit at home or wherever they are at their business. They may not have time to come to a meeting, or they may not have a desire to, but we still want to hear from them. We want their feedback on a number of different areas. And so it's pretty much broken up into three areas: housing, the economy, as well as cultural. And so we really want to hear from community members, and we have questions that get put out there that you can sign up to participate in. And it's really about conversation. It's about positive conversation so that we can, work towards solutions, and we can get that input and we can feed that into the small area plan process that we're going through right now. We've been doing a lot of community engagement work, doing focus groups, and really doing a lot of research. We work with the organization out of Chicago called RW Ventures that is doing the data and market analysis for us. And then we have Flora Kane that is helping us with the community engagement itself and putting the small area plan together. And so our goal is to be able to come back with something that the community has helped put together, and that really envisions what we see that that can potentially be within that area.
You're a rock star.
Well, I don't know about that, but
No, seriously. I love this. It's like such a like well thought out vision that has like so many different like layers to the onion, if you may. And I love how you like outline it in a very clear and concise and like easy to understand manner. Like it's, okay, let's work on the financials. Let's understand how to improve credit scores. Let's understand how to grow wealth. Let's work on a business plan. Let's understand how to launch or start a business or take your current business to another level. And let's work on building generational wealth through home ownership, because home ownership is something that could be passed down to the next generation,
Absolutely.
should you choose, or can be leveraged from an equity standpoint, almost as a savings account,
Yes.
To then stimulate some other opportunity that you have in your mind. So, like, I love this. What are the challenges as an entrepreneur and a CEO that you're facing here?
I would say really
Has everyone been receptive?
I would say for the most part.
Okay.
But there's always fear.
Of course. Yeah.
Always fear.
Right.
And that's very natural, and it was something that we anticipated and expected. And there's always going to be individuals that see it differently, and that's okay.
What's the fear that you were hearing? The unknown or change?
All of the above.
Okay.
Unknown, change, but also, are we telling the truth? You know, are we, because unfortunately,
Have been burned.
right,
Yeah.
absolutely. That's the reality, and so that's a real fear.
Sure.
And so we don't dismiss that by no stretch of the imagination, because we are new, right? And we do have to establish, and that's part of our onus, is to create those relationships and to be able to do things that proves out that we are here to really promote positive growth.
That you're authentic and genuine and committed
Absolutely.
and focused on the growth of the community.
Absolutely.
And it's going to come with you like just being yourself, like, because you're a rock star and getting in front of people, and then the proof of performance.
Right.
Once you get a bunch of pops in a row, then people are going to be like, all right, they're legit.
Yeah.
And you are legit. I mean, talk to us about the first proof of concepts and pops that you've done that have helped steamroll or build momentum.
So one of the first things that we did was we really solidified our partnership with Operation Hope. So we have hired our financial well-being coach. His name is Bernard Woodson, and he is we're partnering with several organizations, but also we're open to the public. We are partnering with CIC, with Fountain Fund.
Nice.
We're looking to partner with Network to Work, because again, we want to create these opportunities and
Networks.
help. Absolutely. And so those are some of the first things that we've done. He's already started to work with individuals on improving their credit scores. For some, for others, they just wanted to have a check-in to make sure that, hey, am I on the right path here? And that was awesome as well, because he can then sit down and look at them and say, yeah, absolutely. And are there any other goals that you have? One of the things that we really want to stress, a lot of individuals have financial analysts or financial investment bankers that they work with that help them manage their resources, manage their money. How they help them grow it, they help them retain it, they help them avoid pitfalls that would eventually, otherwise they may not avoid, because they may not have the necessary knowledge to know to avoid those things.
Sure.
And so we want to help bring that opportunity to everyone, because not everyone is in a position to afford it, or even to know to reach out to that type of individual. So it's not just for wealthy people. Wealthy people have people that help them all day, every day manage their money. So everyone else should have that same opportunity as well.
I love that.
And so part of it is, understanding your resources, and not just from the paycheck, but also things like, do you understand what your total compensation is? Do you understand all those benefits that your employer offers you that you may not be tapping into? Do you have a good separation of your personal financials from your business financials?
To maintain corporate protection should you know what hit the fan.
Right, absolutely. And so that if you do have a desire to expand your business, do you have the right structure in place, and do you understand your financials enough to be able to have that conversation with either a banker or an investor, so that they feel confident that you're going to manage these new resources appropriately? But then also there's still other barriers that exist that are not necessarily tied to a person's ability to understand. There still is the barrier of race that exists.
Sure.
That unfortunately that is systemic, and so our goal is to how do we work around that? How do we get you in the best possible situation so that is no longer the issue? We know that still could be an issue, but we believe that there's other folks out there that are doing wonderful things, that are trying to figure out ways to make sure that there's enough capital available to folks.
I love this. You are creating, you are impacting the community from a micro and macro standpoint. From a micro standpoint, you are serving as an educational sounding board and as a resource network to aspiring entrepreneurs, current business owners, and folks that want to get into home ownership. From a macro standpoint, you're building you're having a generational impact on the community, because once the micro is executed correctly, it's then going to have a macro positive impact with generations of parents passing this knowledge on to their kids.
Absolutely.
I love everything about this. What is seen as success for New Hill? Is it finances? Is it the P&L on the balance sheet? Is it the generational impact? What's success for your organization?
For us, success is having a strong African American presence in Charlottesville.
Nicely said.
Where individuals feel that they have places that they own that resonate with culturally with African Americans, that it's carved out for them, and curated by them. I think that is what's going to really mean success for us, because through that, there means that there's going to be more businesses, more public-facing businesses. There's a number of African American-owned businesses here, but not all of them are public-facing, and so the perception sometimes as new African Americans move here is that this place is not for us, so as a result, they may decide that they don't want to stay here very long. And so that talent leaves our community. And we also, have a number of beautiful, talented individuals that are growing up here that, again, because it's not such a public display of ownership and places that are catered and geared for us, then they feel like that this, again, is not for us. And so we're going to go to other cities where we feel like that those things exist and that we are recognized and we are welcomed. And so we feel like that it would be a success for us, is if we have more of those spaces here and we had more individuals saying, you know what, I want to stay here because I feel like I am not going to be socially isolated here, that I'm going to be able to grow here, I'm going to be able to develop here, my career can grow here, I can own here, I can build wealth here, those sorts of things.
You're getting props from a lot of people. Leontini Claypack, who's come on the show twice, she is awesome.
Yes,
I love
she
you.
is.
I love you. She says, Yolanda, you're an awesome, awesome lady. You're going to have to help me with this name here. What do we got right there?
Her name is Lasagna Shanae.
She says, do it, Yogi. Shirley Terrell says, Yolunda Armstrong Harrell. She gives the emoji with the hands up in the air. Give it a like and share on any of the streams that you guys are watching. Neil Williamson from the Free Enterprise Forum puts the link to Operation Hope in our chat box. I love that, Neil. Like and a share on any of the streams, and if you have a comment or perspective you'd like me to share to Yolanda, I'm happy to do it. Just put it in the chat box here. Throw this to you here. How do you take New Hill to another level? Is it more people engaging with New Hill from a staffing standpoint? Is it more funding coming into the organization? How does it go to another level?
All of the above.
Okay. And that's your job as
yes,
CEO, right?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. So
more awareness,
more participation, but definitely we have to increase our capacity,
sure.
Our internal capacity, to be able to really grow the concept and to be able to implement and to be able to seize opportunities that exist out there. And but we also recognize that there's a number of ways to partner, and so we're increasing our partnerships as well. There's a lot of great and talented people in our community that are doing wonderful things, and so we don't seek to reinvent the wheel. We want to utilize those existing opportunities or those existing resources. But then we also want to challenge. We also want to challenge.
Take them out of their comfort zone.
Absolutely. And say, okay, I understand that you've put this in place. And yes, this is something that's good, but this is a start. This is not the
Have you
finish
thought
line.
about this?
Right. Absolutely.
Love that.
Exactly. But doing it in a way that promotes us to continue to work together and for them to feel comfortable in their uncomfortableness. To say, okay, you know what, you're right. You know, we're not doing as much as we could. And that's okay because, you know, some of us don't always do as much as we could do, but we need to be challenged to do more. But we need to be challenged in a way that allows us to actually want to act.
You're inspiring. I got goosebumps on me. You have folks that are watching right now. You're truly inspiring. You mentioned this, that there are a number of African-American owned businesses in the community, but a lot of them are not, how did you put it, like public-facing businesses. Can you spotlight some of them that have perhaps the most longevity or success that need some attention?
Wow, now you're going to put me on the spot. So I think that there's a number of businesses, you know, more individuals. Well, I would say let's not even go to like longevity. Let's look at some of the newer businesses that are cropping up out there. You have like Culinary Concepts.
Antoine Brinson.
Yes.
He's the man.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's come on the show.
Yeah.
I'm a huge Antoine Brinson fan.
Absolutely. I am too.
Yeah.
And he's one of our partners.
Someone tell Antoine Brinson we're giving him props on the program, please. He is the man.
Yes, absolutely. And so he has started his organization to really help with workforce development, help give individuals access to opportunities and careers.
In the culinary space.
Yes, in the culinary space. Hospitality is a very forgiving space. They're not necessarily concerned about degrees and background as much as your willingness to work.
That's so well said.
You know, and so because of that, you know, our goal is to, you know, and I work with him in that particular space to give individuals opportunity. And so then you also have other organizations out there that are, you have, I want to make sure I'm saying this right, and I'm probably going to butcher it. Pasio.
Okay.
It's a new tech. It's a black tech company by a young man who grew up here in Charlottesville, and recently graduated. And it's a online service it's almost like a mini Ticketmaster, and I hope he forgives me if that's not how he wants me to describe it, but it's something that's new. That allows like high schools and individuals to be able to sell their tickets in that space. And so that's something that's new that's happening as well. But then you also do have organizations out there that are doing wonderful things. You have like, you know, organizations like Chihamba or the African American Heritage Center that are doing things to help curate and to be able to promote business opportunities because they highlight different organizations within that space and allow them a space where they can come in and utilize it to be able to have meetings and that sort of thing. You have
Ahmad Hawkins with what he's doing with Ballhawk.
Yes.
And he is building this like vertically integrated media empire that has merchandise associated with the brand. He's a fantastic MC and motivational speaker. He's doing a daily podcast on social. And he's doing fantastic things. Someone tell Ahmad Hawkins that. I think Robert Gray, who's a good friend of this program with Dream and Diamonds.
Yes.
He's doing a backpack drive that I think is going on right now. Robert Gray, I love you, Robert Gray. Someone tell Robert Gray that. I think, and I will throw this out to you. I am so like utterly like and genuinely and authentically like moved by you, and I think you're an absolute rock star, that anyone that you think needs attention in the space that has ties to New Hill or not, they have a free pass to come on the program anytime they want.
Thank you.
Send me a Facebook message and say, I think this person would be fabulous for the show, and we'll have a similar thing, because I think it's just about a like. So my mom is a Cuban immigrant, and she came here during the third grade, unable to speak English from Cuba. And I talk about this often on the show. Like your mom, my mom, like a huge like motivating factor, like our rock, okay? And she and her parents, Mima and Papi, came from Cuba right before Castro took over and right before Castro implemented his communist regime. And they went from this like middle upper class lifestyle to Miami, Florida, where Papi, my grandfather, was a ditch digger and Mima was a hotel maid, and my mom was put in the third grade without being able to speak English. And she said she experienced hardship going into a white school without being able to speak English that till this day like gets her like emotional, and she's now 69 years old. And they never could ever duplicate the success that they had in Cuba when they were in Miami and then Naples, Florida, because of the language barrier, because folks said, you look different than us from a banker standpoint, and just never could get that like foundation to build a career or to build a professional path. So like I've heard these stories of like trials and tribulations and mainly struggles, and like my mom, and she met my dad, and then they launched a CPA practice, an accounting firm in Florida. And when they were launching this business, like any business that was launching, they were working so hard, like 80 hours a week. So Mimi and Poppy raised my brother and I, and for most of our adolescence, they had no money. We were eating like toast and having water, and like whatever was in the back of the fridge was for dinner for us that particular like evening. And then mom and dad would pick us up when it was 11 o'clock and they were leaving the office. So I remember growing up in this like family of like, mom and dad are trying to build this business to better it for Jeffrey and I, my brother. Meme and Poppy are raising us with the little money that they had so mom and dad could focus on their business. So where I'm going with this is like, I think people don't need like a handout, they just need a hand up.
Right.
And if we can offer this hand up to folks, that is huge.
Absolutely.
And like the hand up for my mom and dad was Meme and Poppy taking Jeffrey and I, my brother and I, after school so they could work till 11 o'clock and build a business.
Right.
So I am moved by you. And I just like respect your risk taking and your vision. And I totally get how people would be like, is it authentic? Is it genuine? It's yes. No, it's just like, watch me do it. And I bet you that motivates the hell out of you, doesn't it?
It does. It really, really does. It's one of the first times in a long, long time where we are actually doing work that is from the heart.
I love it. Talk to me about that.
It's one of those things. I feel like, my husband and I, we always sit down each year and we do we call it our strategic planning session at the beginning of the year for our family and decide what we're going to work on this year. And personally and emotionally, as spiritually, as well as as husband and wife, and so when we talked about this a while ago, we both were like, we don't ever want to work in the nonprofit space. Like we want to do volunteer work, but we are entrepreneurs. We want to make money. We want to make sure that we are helping others make money. We want to grow the opportunity around us, and we didn't want to work in the or the nonprofit space. And so I feel like that, and again, I talked about my faith, that I feel like through my relationship and through my prayer, God said, yeah, but this is where I want you to work. And so for me, it is about fulfilling what I feel like God has as my purpose right now. Whether it's my purpose always, I don't know. But for now, I feel like this is where he would have me work. And so because of that, I'm at peace. I know that some days it's hard because my husband and I, we still have our businesses and we still do those things. And some days are very, very long. But at the end of the day, I'm at peace with all of it. I don't care how many hours I put in. I put in long hours working in corporate jobs where people really didn't appreciate all the long hours that you put in.
Especially in hospitality.
Yes, absolutely.
Like
and
weekends and holidays.
Never a day off.
Right.
Never a day off, and if the, fire alarm gets pulled in the middle of the night or someone actually does set fire to the place, then you got to get up in the middle of the night and go deal with that. And, and so this is an opportunity to be able to impact your community in a positive way and to help others reach their goals. One of my favorite motivational speakers is Zig Ziglar. And one of his sayings that he says is that you will always get what you want when you help just enough other people get what they want.
Nice.
And so
say that again.
You will always get what you want when you help just enough other people get what they want.
That's so true.
And that's what we want to do.
I love it. How do you feel being a leader? And I can tell you're a leader just by how you carry yourself. You're like such a pleasant and charming conversationalist, and like have like a vision and like this razor focus and this willingness to take risks. And then you have folks like Annette Owens saying Yolanda was born to lead, and Leontini saying the future generation is depending on entrepreneurs to establish the foundation. Hard work pays off. Look at Yolanda. And then you have Troy Robinson, who I think is in Ruckersville right now. Great vision from this young lady. So you are like moving these folks by what you're saying here. Do you see yourself as a leader?
I see myself as a servant,
Okay.
and
What's the difference?
I think that in order to be a great leader, you have to be willing to serve others, and you have to be able to take direction, and you have to be able to humble yourself and to be able to do the work that needs to get done in order to for others to be successful. And so, in any organization that I had the privilege to be a part of, if I was in that leadership role, whether I was the manager or not, my goal was to help those around me be successful, because that ultimately was going to lead to my success. And so if they were getting out of it what they needed to get out of it for themselves, and they were reaching their goals, then I was going to get what I needed to get in terms of organizational goals.
That's a great answer. 62 minutes in, you've made this show so easy. Why don't we close with this? How can we learn more about New Hill Development Corporation? And let's give some more attention with the media outlets watching now to the online town hall forum.
Absolutely. So you can go to New Hill Development, newhilldev.org, and that is our website. You can follow us on Facebook as well, and we do have our online platform. It's called Panika. It's CVille Panika, and if you go out there, you can sign up for the next discussions that are coming up. It will be different questions, and we're going to have some of those questions to recycle through. But we start conversations on Sundays, and we start conversations again on Tuesdays, and that allows us to be able to get positive feedback from the community so that they can take part in this process of helping to shape our future.
I love it. We will archive the show in totality on ilovecville.com. I'm truly, truly grateful for your most precious commodity, your time. You made us better today. I just loved everything about this interview. And I wish you the best of success and luck in any way we can help with leveraging this platform to spotlight what you guys are doing, or any of your strategic partners, or anybody that you think that should be on the show. You have carte blanche. Anything at all. And I truly, truly mean that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you. We close the show, guys, the same way every time, and we ask you to body the golden rule. I'm going to hold off on that for a second, and I'm going to ask everyone that's watching to learn more about New Hill Development Corporation and to get involved. I think what we try to do with this platform is to have open dialogue and conversation, and allow you guys, the audience, to kind of be like a fly on the wall during this approachable conversation, and to take bits and pieces from what you've heard and either apply it to your life or pass that knowledge on to somebody else, because education is power and breeds opportunity. So we try to take no stance politically, and just spotlight folks that are improving and making the community a better place for all of us. And I think Yolunda Harrell epitomizes that, and New Hill Development Corporation epitomizes that. And I think Charlottesville is in this like crazy crossroads with 10.27 square miles of land that makes up the city of Charlottesville, and all this money is flooding into it, and the cost of living is getting so high that if we're not careful of preserving neighborhood character and integrity and history, and the essence of the neighborhood, we risk that this community turns into something like San Francisco, or something to like a bedroom community of New York City, where it's only millionaires and the uber wealthy that can afford to live in Charlottesville. And I don't know about you, but that's not the kind of community I want to live in. I want to live in a community that's diverse, and a community that has opportunity for everyone. And I want to live in a community that I can raise my 15-month-old son and be proud about. And I think New Hill Development Corporation is doing that. And we will now close with asking you guys to embody the golden rule. We don't make it about religion. We just make it about treating other people how you want to be treated yourself. And if we treat other people how we want to be treated ourselves, it's going to have a positive impact across the community. And I think not only Charlottesville needs this, but our country in totality need it more than ever. It's the golden rule. My name is Jerry Miller. It's the I Love CVille Show. We will see you tomorrow at 12:30. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you.
I loved everything about you, and like you just hit a grand slam.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to come on the show.
Sure, and I mean that genuinely. Anything you need, anything like this, anything at all. I trust your judgment.
Okay.
You tell me, you Facebook message me.